Last time we talked about Megaman, I talked about the sequel Megaman X2 and how I thought it was a great time but was not really as good as that original game. Now it's 1995, Megaman 7 came out that year and was received well, and later that year the PS1 were released with such classics like Rayman and the other 10 games. Yet we got Mega Man X3 in December 1995, a whole 3 months after the PlayStation 1 existed. But yeah, let's talk about it. This is gonna be an interesting review. Mega Man X3 is the most divisive game in the X series, right next to Mega Man X5, and it's the X game with the most versions. Now, having said that, I think X3 is just okay. It has some good stuff and has some terrible design decisions, but overall, it's, as one would say, the game of all time. Now let's get into it. The story of Mega Man X3 begins with a backstory, as does all the SNES Mega Man games. A red-blooded scientist named Dr. Doppler created a cure for the Maverick virus. This achievement of his causes a town to be made in his honor called Doppo Town. Dr. Doppler then turns evil and sends out 8 Mavericks as he launches an attack at Maverick Hunter Base. X and Zero destroy all the Mavericks there, and it is now your duty as X to defeat all 8 Mavericks and Dr. Doppler. After you beat your first 2 stages, Dr. Doppler sends out Bit, Bite, and a resurrected Vile to go after you to try and kill you. The story does work as a platformer and gives you a reason to want to fight Dr. Doppler as he attacked your base of operation, but other than that, it's your basic Mega Man plot. Not really much to go into. Now, normally I like to talk about music, but I'm gonna have to save that for the console comparison section of the video, so let's move on to the graphics. I said this in my Mega Man X2 review, but all the Mega Man X games on the SNES look great and hold up as some of the best looking games on the console, though this game feels more of the same and was really showing with the environment design that nothing new could be done on this hardware. In terms of environment design, I'd say that it's the second best, only behind Mega Man X1. Moving on, it's time to talk about gameplay. In X2, I said that X had the dash by default and not unlocked by getting the armor capsule in Chill Penguin stage. In X3, however, X in this game hasn't really changed from the last game. It's still charge shot, jump, and dash as normal. So there's really no buffs X has that he hasn't had in X2. However, in this game, you can play as Zero. You play as him in the intro after X gets captured. He can dash and charge his shots, where if you charge it up enough where he glows green, he uses his saber. But the problem with Zero in this game is that he's a little too restrictive. He's bigger than X, which means that he is more prone to damage, and when you get to a boss door, you will automatically switch to X even if there isn't a boss at the door. Overall, X is still X at the end of the day, and Zero was a good idea, just not executed as well as I wanted him to be. The level design in X3 is a weird one, cause I wouldn't call it bad, but not that memorable. X3 levels I see tend to go on a bit longer than the typical X1 or X2 stage. For a good example, let's take a look at Wire Sponge from X2 and Tonal Rhino from X3, since these were the first stages I did for my runs for the review. Wire Sponge's stage, excluding the Maverick box, took me around 2 minutes to complete. Tonal Rhino stage, excluding the Maverick box, on the other hand, took me around 4 minutes. If you want to factor in grabbing every collectible in Tunnel Rhino's stage, we would have had to add another 30 seconds to that stage. Stages don't need to go on for that long in an X game. If they need to be, I want them to do what the later X games would do and split them up into 2 separate levels. There is also the problem that the game has this leap of faith design where you won't see what's below you and you will fall on an enemy or spikes like I did right here. It isn't the worst in this game, as it will come back in its worst form later on. X3's level design is also very straightforward, where you just blast through a bunch of enemies while dashing and grabbing the collectible here and there. Overall, a very disappointing set of levels. The item game in X3 is a very interesting one. You still have them 4 sub-tanks, them 4 heart tanks, and them item capsules that you need to collect. But there is a new collectible to get, the ride armors that really aren't that useful. You first need to grab the Chimera armor and Blast Hornet stage to use the other ones, which is really dumb if you think about it. And the other ones like the Frog armor are really pointless. I only collect them to get 100% if I'm being honest. There are also the pink armor capsules that give your third armor enhancements, but you can only have one enhancement. This idea is not that necessary with the pink capsule in Doppler Stage 1, where if you have every collectible, don't pick up a pink capsule before then, and are at full health, you can get the gold armor where you have all the upgrades. But this requires me to talk about the armor from X3. I said in the X2 video that the second armor is one of the best ones in the series. The third armor from X3 is good, but kind of a downgrade from X2. Now, the best part of the armor is the foot parts that lets you dash in the air, but also lets you dash upward, which is why I consider this the best foot parts in the series. The arm parts let you charge up your special weapon as always, but when you charge it up all the way, you release both shots at the same time, you get a screen wave move. But it's not really that useful. The body parts put a shield around you protecting yourself, which is kind of like the body armor from X1, and the head parts, which are pretty useless. It shows a grid of the stage you are on, but it's not that good of a map since you don't really know what is a grid in this game. An example of a good idea with a lackluster payoff. Kind of like this game, go figure. But if you get the gold armor in Doppler Stage 1, you get all the enhancements. 2 dashes for your foot parts, self-healing while standing still with the head parts, a stringer arm with the body parts, and pre-charge shots with the arm parts. If this was the third armor, I would say it's one of the best, but it is an unlockable upgrade in the end game. So it's not really all that worthwhile in the full game until, like I said, the final few levels. Now, in terms of backtracking with all of these collectibles, if you do the route correctly, you can complete the game with only one backtrack. So the route here is Tunnel Rhizo, Blizzard Buffalo, Blast Hornet, Neon Tiger, Toxic Seahorse, Gravity Beetle, Volt Catfish, and Crushed Crawfish. Then a backtrack to Tunnel Rhino for the heart tank and head parts. There are certain things you need for the items in this game. You need Tornado Fan to get the heart tank and Blizzard Buffalo stage, the Chimera armor and Blast Hornet stage, and the arm parts in Neon Tiger stage. But you also need the arm parts to get the upgrades in Volt Catfish's stage, Tunnel Rhino stage, and Toxic Seahorse's stage, and Crushed Crawfish's stage. Everything in the order I just said, even though the bosses in this game are kind of hard, which is a perfect segue. I really did not think about that. Now, the bosses in this game can be hard to learn since you take so much damage from them thanks to the damage scaling in this game. Though, if you know what you're doing, you can learn them or cheat them, and they are both equally fun. Also, the special weapons I didn't use weren't all that useful, except for the Blizzard Buffalo's weapon, because in the SNES version it could drop health for you. Honestly, after X1 there's only 1 or 2 weapons I use, and the rest I don't use outside of weaknesses. The other bosses that aren't the Mavericks are Bit, Bite, and Vile Mark II. I think once you have their weaknesses they are pretty easy to deal with, but if you don't have their weaknesses then they will just leave instead of dying. But I killed them because that's what I do. To find Vile, you need to find these secret capsules that I think are easy to find in a Volt Catfish's level, and to kill him, destroy the mech, and then use Ray Splasher to destroy him. Not all that special. Now, with all of that out of the way, I can talk about the different versions of X3. Now, the SNES version is the one Capcom wants you to play since it's on the Legacy Collection that's on every console nowadays. But I played the PS1 version before and sampled it for this video, and I can say that they're the same with some enhancements. There are these anime cutscenes that are low res to this day but still look interesting and really good for the time. The transparent details that are also in the Saturn version, that's why you see Saturn footage on screen, and then the soundtrack. Now, I didn't mention this in the beginning for this reason. Now, the SNES OST I think is good. There are some songs that I personally don't vibe with, but there's some bangers. The PS1 OST is my kind of jam material since the game was on a CD. It sounds more clean with a new kind of vibe to it that I really like. The OST alone is the reason I play the PS1 version. The game was also ported to Saturn, and from what I experienced, it's a little slower in terms of performance, and I was playing the Japanese version of this game, so that 50Hz wasn't a problem. And the border around it was a little distracting, but overall is not a bad way to play the game. PS1 version is also on the X Collection for PS2 and GameCube if you were curious. With that out of the way, we can talk about the finale. We reach the castle stages, and they are a mixed bag. In stage 1, this is where you will get the gold armor with all the upgrades that the pink capsules would have given you. At the end of the stage, if you kill Bit and Bite, you get a garbage disposal boss, but if you didn't kill them, then you fight Bit and Bite that are combined into one entity. Stage 2 has two versions. If you kill Vile Mark II, you get this clean version with tough enemies to take down, but if you don't kill, then you get this destroyed version and have to fight Vile. There is no Street Fighter move in Megaman X3, but there is one more thing you can unlock. If you kill Vile, kept Zero alive, reach Doppler 2, and before you enter the first mini-boss door, switch to Zero, where you will then fight the mini-boss. Once it's defeated, Zero will take too much battle damage and give you the C-Saber, which two-shots anything in the game. I don't really collect this upgrade since I think you can beat the game just fine with the gold armor. At the end of the Doppler Stage 2, you have one of the worst segments in a Mega Man X game with these damn snails that are so slow and it's really pace breaking. Then it's a boss rush, which is not good, as always. Then a battle against Doppler, which can really kick your shit in since he can heal himself. Then you have the final boss with Sigma, which is pretty finicky. The first phase isn't that bad, just use Crush Crawfish's weapon and you should be fine. But it's the second phase that's finicky, since his box is very precise and he consistently moving up and down. Just aim where the exhaust ports are and you should be fine. Then you have to climb the top, and if you get hit, you are most likely dead. But when you reach the top, Zero or Doppler will defeat the Sigma virus, with the ending setting up this thing where X and Zero might fight in the future, which will be interesting when we get to that ending. Mega Man X3. Mega Man X3, as the title of this video says, is the game of all time. There are some good things in this game that I like, and some things in this game that I don't like or are implemented poorly. But I'm gonna be honest, even if I think this game is mid, I'll still play it when I'm doing an X marathon. It's not some piece of crap game that is bullshit most of the time, or some poorly implemented idea that made the game not fun. It's a well-made product at the end of the day, and if you enjoy it, that's great. But I think I talked enough for today. Join me next time when we talk about one of my favorite games of all time, Mega Man X4. If you liked today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Letterboxd, link in the description. Be sure to also check my podcast, The Anonymous Gamer, where me, Protector of Memes, and a few guests that we have are in the show, talk about video games and whatnot and be stupid while doing it.
Craig is omnipotent.
Oh no.
Craig sees all.
He's gonna know too much. He's gonna know too much by the end of this.
The playlist will be in a link in the description. Until then, I'm Avatar Aiden, and I will see you all next time.